So next up, podcast listeners, Chuck Schumer alienates 74 million voters. How's that possible? Well, he managed to do it. So Chuck Schumer was in New York this week, and he decides to unload on the Trump voters and the Trump supporters. Folks, Donald Trump's been out of office since January, and yet the Democrat Party can't let him go because they have nothing really that is of substance to offer the American people other than more misery and making the economy worse with inflation and shrinkflation and who knows what else. So Schumer, of course, in order to keep his base stirred up, decides to attack not just Trump, but the 74 million people that voted for him. And he calls Trump a despicable, vile man. We had that clip, and here it is.
You probably asked yourself the same question I asked myself. How could 74 million people vote for such a despicable human being as Donald Trump? And I don't care if you're a liberal or a conservative, Democrat or Republican. He is a vile man. He is dishonest. He is divisive. That's what he loves to do, just divide and have people fighting with each other. He's a racist. And he always appeals to the dark side of human nature, which he's very good at, unfortunately. How did they vote for him?
So, according to Chuck Schumer, he thinks that you, as a result of voting for Donald Trump, are vile and you are on the dark side of things, namely that you are in the evil side of things in the United States, on the evil side of issues, on the wrong side of issues, and therefore you are an awful person because you and your 74 million best friends voted for Donald Trump. Voted for Donald Trump. That's ridiculous. Okay? Obviously, on its face, it's ridiculous. But who does that? Who attacks? The president's not in office. His supporters don't have the guy that they wanted in office. And Schumer, it's not enough that they're trying to ruin Donald Trump economically. And it's not enough that they're trying to take down his companies. They want to make sure that they take him out completely so he doesn't run again. But they also want to take out the Trump voters. I mean, folks, these people are going to vote again. Why would you alienate them? Why wouldn't you try to unite them and at least find out what it is that they really want? What is it that the Trump voters really want? I mean, they want free and fair elections. They want voter ID. They want a secure border. These are all things that Chuck Schumer doesn't want. They want an America where it is put first, not last. They don't want China first. They want America first. They want to repatriate good manufacturing jobs in the high technology sector and in the low technology sector. They want America to be as great as it once was. And they saw Donald Trump as the person who was leading them down that road. But Chuck Schumer doesn't just attack Trump. He decides, I'm going to attack the 74 million voters who want what is perfectly reasonable. But he's never really asked. And for you podcast listeners out there who think for 1 minute that you're going to try to politicize this issue, it's like, oh no, the Trump voters, they're bad too. If you ever listened to a Trump voter, have you ever gone into Pennsylvania and seen the devastation in the towns in Pennsylvania that used to be robust towns with great union jobs and factory jobs, and the same thing in Ohio and elsewhere? If you did, you would see nothing but devastation. And those jobs have left. The products that they once made are still being made. They just aren't being made here. And no plan was put into place to replace those jobs or to replace those industries with the next generation of technology and the next generation of manufacturing. It never happened. And so Schumer is saying, well, those voters are wrong. They're wrong. I'm not going to address their concerns. And they're un-American. They're on the dark side. And meanwhile, he's the guy, Schumer is, who says Trump divided people. And just 1 year ago, Schumer stood in front of the Supreme Court of the United States and he decided to threaten two Supreme Court justices over a case that was in front of them about abortion. Talk about dividing people and threatening people. I mean, that's what he did. We had that clip, and here it is.
I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Yes, so that is good old Chucky Schumer, of course, a year ago, threatening Justices Kavanaugh and Justice Gorsuch and saying that they're going to pay a price if they don't rule a certain way in a Supreme Court case relating to abortion. And that's not divisive. That's not divisive. Calling potential harm to the justices of the Supreme Court because they just happen to have a different point of view, and calling harm to Trump voters or calling them on the dark side and evil and wrong-headed because of the fact that they have a different point of view. And speaking of which, a New York Times reporter had to delete a tweet, or chose to delete a tweet, but she kind of had to delete the tweet because she was called out on it after she was urging Trump supporters to be called enemies of the state. So, once again, a New York Times reporter decided to delete her tweets in which she urged Trump supporters to be called enemies of the state. And she only did it, that is, she only deleted the tweet because of the massive backlash. So New York Times reporter Katie Benner deleted tweets calling for Trump supporters to be considered enemies of the state after she faced a viral backlash from critics. Amid the first hearing of the January 6th committee on Capitol Hill, Benner suggested that in order to combat national security threats within the country, the solution was to target the voters of the former president, literally taking her orders from Chucky Schumer. However, the Times' Justice Department reporter later took down the tweets, claiming they were unclearly worded. Not that they were wrong, they just weren't worded properly. The Times did not respond to Fox's News' multiple requests for comment, including an inquiry about whether Benner deleted the tweets at the direction of the paper. So Katie Benner tweeted out, "I deleted unclearly worded tweets regarding the January 6th committee hearing." She deleted unclearly worded tweets. Yeah. In the original tweets, Benner stressed that the January 6th committee underscores what she indicated was the ongoing threat within the U.S. Today's January 6th Select Committee, she said, underscores the America's current essential national security dilemma. Work to combat legitimate national security threats now entails calling a politician's supporters enemies of the state. So she called all of the Trump supporters enemies of the state and national security threats. Benner explained, quote, "As Americans, we believe the state power should not be used to work against a political figure or a political party. But what happens if a politician seems to threaten the state? If the politician continues to do so out of office and his entire party supports that threat?" The Times' DOJ reporter cast doubt about the Pelosi-appointed committee would resolve the dilemma since it remained unresolved following the Russia investigation and both impeachments. Quote, "That leaves it up to voters, making even more essential, free, fair access to the polls," Benner concluded. So, folks, what you have here is not just a partisan reporter, but an activist reporter who is calling the 74 million voters of Donald Trump enemies of the state. Enemies of the state. And that's the same week as Chucky Schumer calling the 74 million voters the same thing, right? That they are, in Chucky's words, on the dark side, that they're wrong, that they're evil. And we've been through this before, but Donald Trump hasn't been in office since January. And the Democrats are losing in every national poll on all of the important issues of the day: policing, public safety, the border, international security, the military, the economy. They're losing. And even Jen Psaki in the Business Insider, White House press secretary Jen Psaki says Biden doesn't want to fight Fox News after Trump completely destroyed trust in media and institutions. So Jen Psaki is like, well, the reason why we don't have the media trusted is because Donald Trump destroyed the trust in the media and in institutions. And so Joe Biden doesn't want to fight Fox News over, the questions that are asked by Steve Doocy, because Steve Doocy, he might, is it Steve or Peter Doocy? Who's the young one? Is it Peter Doocy? Okay, yeah, Steve is the older one. So Peter Doocy keeps asking questions at these press conferences, and the Biden administration is getting very upset because apparently Fox News is the only organization that actually asks difficult questions. And so Psaki is saying, it's Peter, so I got it right. All right, it is Peter Doocy. He's the young guy, looks just like his father, but a younger version by like 25, 30 years. And he's the one that keeps asking questions like, what about masking up? Mr. President, you said we weren't going to mask up anymore, and now we may have a national mask mandate. And, what about children getting vaccinated? I thought we weren't going to have, you can just go on and on and on. But with this particular issue, Jen Psaki is like, oh no, it was Donald Trump that destroyed the media. So, of course, the theme of this segment is the Democrat Party can't let go of Donald Trump. That's all they have left to be able to blame as to why they're failing so badly in managing the economy, in managing the border, and in managing international affairs. And so they have to keep bringing back Donald Trump. It's Donald Trump. It's his 74 million voters that are stopping us from properly managing the economy. It must be their fault. It can't be our fault. I mean, come on.